So we have some more of Handsy Uncle Joseph's greatest hits here for everybody. He discussed the issue of corruption in his last presidential campaign, and he basically confirmed my worst fears about him. So let's take a look, and then we'll discuss.
Lobbyists aren't bad people. Special interest groups are not bad people. But guess what? They're corrosive. People who accept the money from them aren't bad people, but it's human nature. You go out, Lynn, and bundle $250,000 for me, all legal, and then you call me after I'm elected and say, Joe, I'd like to come and talk to you about something. You didn't buy me, but it's human nature. You helped me. I'm going to say, sure, Lynn, come on in.
See, to him, and here's why that clip is so important, to him, the corruption in the system is just a duh. It's just like, well, what do you mean? This is how it works. This is how it functions. What are you, like a naive child? Do you not get it? Here are the dynamics. Let me explain it to you. And sure, it might be corrosive, but it's human nature. So what are we going to do? We're going to rewire human nature? Is that even possible? No. So listen, learn the ropes, son. It's got this, it smacks of this snobby attitude of like, wake up, you child. Like, this is the real situation. Now, you might not like all the nooks and crannies of how this functions, but this is how it functions. And listen, the thing is, that's exactly what we don't like about you, Joe, is that he doesn't question the fundamental premises of our rotten system. And that's why he can't be the nominee, because the whole technocratic, neoliberal, wonky approach to politics, where you basically do as good as you possibly can, but within the confines of our grotesque, disgusting, rotten system, we are fundamentally past that as a nation. And it's time to basically implement a radical new way of doing politics. Why would we go in the same direction that failed last time? Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton represented the same strand of democratic thought. And Joe Biden is trying to mask it somewhat at sometimes, but at other times he's letting it all hang out, and he says shit like this. I mean that clip really is disturbing to me, because it confirms my worst fears about Joe Biden, which is the last thing he would ever do is question the premises of our system and say, no, we need to rework this entire thing. This whole thing is broken. What he does, and he thinks this is like keeping it real, is he looks at it and he goes, well, there's certain things that we can't do because it's just so baked into the cake of the system, like the corruption. So we can't push back against the corruption. We can't totally redo campaign finance. We can't do the correct answers on many fronts, like Medicare for All, for example, which he's against. So, I don't know. I'll just keep everything roughly the same and do as good as I can within the confines of that system. And that's just the wrong approach. And that's an unacceptable way of thinking when we have multiple crises that require big, bold solutions. I mean, climate change. He just said the other day, I'm for the middle ground approach on climate change. There is no middle ground approach. What do you mean? There is no middle ground approach. We need to immediately start moving in the direction of getting off of fossil fuels and doing totally green and renewable technology. And even then, you better buckle up, because it's no guarantee that we're going to be able to reverse this in an adequate way. And we're still probably going to feel the brunt of some of the worst aspects of climate change. So there is no middle ground, dude. Like, that's the thing. You look at a healthcare system where 44 million people are uninsured. We have 30 to 45,000 people who die every year because they don't have access to basic care. Medical bills is one of the top causes of bankruptcies. And your response is, maybe expand on Obamacare and do a public option. Well, millions of people would still be uninsured if you did that. People would still die from not having access to basic health care if you did that. Medical bills would still be a top cause of bankruptcy if you did that. So the thing is, man, it's not even like he's corrupt, but he's acknowledging on some level, like, everything shouldn't be like this, dog. And if I was in control, I would try to fix this. No, he's saying, well, of course I'm going to take the phone call. You gave me $250,000, totally legal. That's what he said, totally legal. Yeah, but that's the problem, Joe. And when you look at a guy like Bernie, you go, oh, he's disgusted by that system, and he would do everything in his power to change that system. He would do everything in his power to make it so that's not even a thing anymore. Nobody can give hundreds of thousands of dollars or even thousands of dollars. So Joe Biden is just a total letdown. And there's that thing that happens as a general rule when people get older, which is, it's like this naturalistic fallacy. They look at the way things are and they go, well, that's the way things are. So that's the way they're going to be. So they don't care to really go back to the bottom floor, to the grassroots level and say, well, maybe we can like fundamentally redo the way a lot of this stuff works. They think that that's like pie in the sky, naive, childish garbage and bullshit. That's how they think. And I'm here to say, well, what if the exact opposite is true? And the problem is all these people who just want to do mild tweaks and they pawn off their failures to, that's just the way it is. No, there is no, that's just the way it is. If we see a problem, we should fix it. If we see corruption, we should end it. If we have a broken system, we should fix it. At first, there was, one poll that had Biden leading by a lot, and I was like, okay, well, that's one poll, and the methodology is they're oversampling older voters. But now I've seen like 5 or 6 polls where he's leading. Now, can you say, hey, all of them have a demographic bias? Possibly. But is it also time to say that as of right this second, he is the front runner? Yeah, I mean, yes, you can say that. I think that even if you include, right now, at this very second, even if you include more younger voters in the polls, Biden would still be leading. Now, it won't be by as much as the polls are saying, but I think he would still be leading. And there has been a noticeable uptick since he announced that he's running. And with Bernie, he has kind of petered off a little bit. And that's even looking at an apples to apples comparison of Bernie, back when he was the clear front runner and Biden hadn't announced yet, with arguably the sampling biases where it's like, okay, they're oversampling older voters still, and Bernie was leading. And now Bernie has fallen off a little bit and Biden has ticked up a little bit. Again, ultimately, I really don't think Biden is going to be the ultimate threat. But then again, I could be wrong. It's very possible I'm wrong, and Biden kind of hangs on and pulls a Hillary in a sense, where it's like he's just leading by default because he's got even more name recognition than Bernie at this point. So it's almost like a default lazy man's like, yeah, whatever, Biden, sure. And then he hangs on as a result of that. But my initial reaction is still that he's gonna kind of peter off a little bit as time goes by, and because it happened the last 2 times he ran for president. And I think the best predictor of future action is past action. And I think that he's already showing he shoves his foot in his mouth and he doesn't have the chops to hold the Democratic base. But having said that, as of right now, yeah, he is the front runner. And I think that's, no matter how you slice it or dice it, even if they fix those polls and, included more younger folks in it. So we gotta realize it for what it is, man, and we gotta make the case. And the Democratic establishment is gonna whine and yelp and bitch and moan and say, well, you can't attack other candidates. No. This is a primary. The whole point of a primary is to distinguish between the candidates and say, hey, here's where they're different. So when we bring up Joe Biden's voting record, when we show clips of him saying, corruption, yeah, sure, that's human nature, it's the way it works. We're doing this for a reason. So people get educated and they know the deal. And they know, oh, okay, well, when there's, a zillion other options, perhaps I don't go with the old jaded dude who fundamentally will not change the system in the radical way that it needs to be changed.